A woman walked into Hitler's private circle wearing pearls instead of a uniform. She attended aristocratic dinners, shared conversations with dictators, dined with diplomats, and somehow convinced Britain's most powerful politicians that she was their friend. To the Nazis, she was a trusted confidant. To Britain's elite, she was a glamorous socialite. To intelligence agencies, she became something far more dangerous. A woman who could influence powerful men without ever firing a single shot. For years, governments couldn't agree on one simple question. Was she secretly working for Hitler? Or was she manipulating everyone around her for her own survival? The answer would drag royalty, spies, prime ministers, and even MI5 into one of the strangest intelligence stories of the 20th century. Because Stephanie von Hohenlohe wasn't born a princess. She built that identity herself. And before Europe realized who she truly was, she had already walked through doors that no ordinary spy could ever enter. Vienna, 1891. Long before Europe knew her as Princess Stephanie von Hohenlohe, she entered the world as Stephanie Julienne Richter, born into a middle-class Jewish family in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Nothing about her childhood suggested she would one day dine with dictators. But from an early age, Stephanie possessed something far more valuable than wealth. She understood people. She noticed how powerful men reacted to confidence, how aristocrats valued appearance over truth, how a convincing story could open doors that money never could. As Europe entered the glamorous years before the First World War, Stephanie reinvented herself piece by piece. Elegant dresses, perfect manners, flawless German, and excellent conversational skills. She became a familiar face among wealthy businessmen and members of high society. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. She began a relationship with Prince Friedrich Franz von Hohenlohe-Oldenburg-Schillingsfürst, a member of one of Germany's oldest noble families. The romance shocked aristocratic society. The prince was wealthy, respected, and connected to Europe's ruling elite. Stephanie, by comparison, possessed no royal blood. Yet somehow, she convinced him that she belonged in his world. Soon she became pregnant. The resulting scandal threatened to destroy the prince's reputation. Rather than endure public disgrace, an arrangement was reached. A marriage, whether it was motivated by love, pressure, or political convenience, has remained debated by historians. But the result was undeniable. Stephanie Richter became Princess Stephanie von Hohenlohe. Overnight, doors that had once been locked swung wide open. London, Berlin, Paris, Vienna. Europe's most exclusive drawing rooms welcomed her. She mastered the art of conversation, never speaking too much, always asking just enough. Powerful men found themselves talking freely around her. Industrialists discussed business. Politicians whispered about alliances. Military officers complained about rivals. Stephanie listened. She remembered everything. By the late 1920s, Germany was changing. Economic collapse had shaken the country. Political extremists were rising. One name appeared more frequently in private conversations: Adolf Hitler. Many dismissed him as another loud politician who would eventually disappear. Stephanie did not. She recognized something others failed to see. If Hitler succeeded, knowing him personally could become priceless. Rather than avoid the growing Nazi movement, she quietly began building relationships with people close to it. At first, they viewed her with suspicion. After all, despite her aristocratic title, rumors about her origins circulated constantly. Yet Stephanie possessed an extraordinary ability. She made influential people feel important. Eventually, introductions followed. Senior Nazi officials welcomed her into elite gatherings. Then came the meeting that would transform her life forever. She was introduced to Adolf Hitler himself. Few people expected the encounter to lead anywhere. Instead, Hitler appeared fascinated. Stephanie was intelligent, elegant, well-connected inside British aristocratic society. She understood England better than almost anyone in his circle. Hitler desperately wanted influence inside Britain. Stephanie suddenly became useful, very useful. Soon she wasn't merely attending political dinners. She was receiving personal invitations, private conversations, exclusive meetings. Some historians would later claim Hitler affectionately referred to her as his dear princess. Others argue their relationship has been exaggerated. What cannot be disputed is this: Stephanie gained extraordinary access to one of Europe's most dangerous men. Meanwhile, across the English Channel, British politicians welcomed her with equal enthusiasm. Many viewed her as the perfect intermediary, someone who understood both Germany and Britain. A woman who might even help prevent another devastating European war. But intelligence officers watching from the shadows saw something entirely different. They noticed how often she crossed borders, how many influential figures sought private meetings with her, how frequently confidential political conversations seemed to follow her. Was she simply an ambitious aristocrat? Or had one elegant princess quietly become the most valuable unofficial agent in Hitler's expanding network? The invitations became more exclusive, the conversations more confidential, and the stakes far more dangerous. By the early 1930s, Princess Stephanie von Hohenlohe had accomplished something almost unimaginable. She could move comfortably between Hitler's inner circle and Britain's highest social ranks. To Berlin, she was an aristocratic woman with remarkable access to influential English families. To London, she appeared to be a well-connected German princess who might help preserve peace in Europe. Very few people suspected she could be serving another purpose entirely. Hitler certainly recognized her value. Unlike many of his advisors, Stephanie understood British culture from the inside. She knew which politicians admired Germany, which newspaper owners shaped public opinion, which aristocrats believed another European war must be avoided at any cost. Private meetings with Hitler became increasingly frequent. Although no official government position was ever granted to her, historians agree that she became an unofficial intermediary, carrying impressions, opinions, and messages between influential circles. Whether she was acting as a formal intelligence asset or simply pursuing her own ambitions remains debated. But one fact is undeniable. Her influence continued to grow. One of her closest relationships was with Lord Rothermere, owner of the Daily Mail and one of Britain's most powerful newspaper magnates. Rothermere admired Germany's economic recovery and initially believed cooperation with Hitler could secure lasting peace. Stephanie encouraged those conversations. She arranged introductions, delivered personal letters, shared political observations gathered during her visits to Germany. To many observers, she appeared less like a journalist's acquaintance and more like an unofficial diplomat. As Europe drifted toward another conflict, her network expanded beyond politicians, industrialists, military officers, royal acquaintances, foreign ambassadors. Every dinner became an opportunity, every reception a source of information. Unlike traditional spies who stole secret documents under cover of darkness, Stephanie collected something equally valuable: opinions, intentions, personal weaknesses. She understood that powerful decisions were often made long before official papers were ever signed. British intelligence slowly became uneasy. MI5 officers noticed her extraordinary access. Reports described her as charming, persuasive, and unusually successful at cultivating influential friendships. Her movements were carefully recorded, telephone contacts quietly monitored, and anyone associated with Hitler immediately attracted the attention of British security services. Princess Stephanie von Hohenlohe suddenly transformed from glamorous aristocrat into a potential national security threat. MI5 intensified its surveillance. Investigators reviewed years of correspondence, financial transactions, personal meetings, travel records. The same elegant woman who once crossed European borders with ease now found nearly every movement watched. Still, one enormous question remained unanswered. Had Stephanie truly been working for Nazi Germany? Or had she simply spent years exploiting both sides while serving only herself? The answer would determine whether Britain viewed her as a sophisticated socialite or one of Hitler's most dangerous unofficial agents. The war erased every illusion. Titles no longer mattered. Old friendships became evidence. And the woman who had once moved effortlessly between Europe's grandest drawing rooms now found herself trapped between two worlds that no longer trusted each other. When Britain entered the Second World War, MI5 acted quickly. Princess Stephanie von Hohenlohe's movements were severely restricted. Her correspondence was intercepted. Visitors were questioned. Every telephone conversation became another piece of an expanding intelligence file. To British investigators, one question overshadowed everything else. Why had Hitler placed so much confidence in her? There was no single answer. Some officers believed she had served as an unofficial influence agent, subtly encouraging powerful Britons to favor appeasement before the war. Others argued she had exaggerated her importance, convincing both Hitler and Britain's elite that she possessed influence far greater than she actually did. Stephanie herself insisted she had always worked to prevent war, not encourage it. But by 1940, explanations mattered less than appearances. Britain could no longer afford uncertainty. She was arrested under Defense Regulation 18B, the emergency wartime law allowing the detention of individuals considered security risks without a traditional criminal trial. The woman who had once attended Europe's most exclusive receptions now found herself behind locked doors. Unlike ordinary prisoners, Stephanie remained composed. She understood something many others did not. Wars changed quickly. Political fortunes changed even faster. If she survived, her story might not be over. Inside detention, intelligence officers questioned her repeatedly. They wanted names, meetings, letters, private conversations with Hitler, her connections to Lord Rothermere, every discussion with senior Nazi officials. Stephanie answered carefully, sometimes confidently, sometimes vaguely, often insisting that social relationships had been mistaken for espionage. The interrogators remained unconvinced. Yet proving deliberate espionage proved remarkably difficult. There were suspicions, patterns, influence, access, but very little that resembled the dramatic spy cases Britain was prosecuting elsewhere. Months passed. Then an unexpected opportunity appeared. American journalist William Randolph Hearst, one of the most powerful newspaper publishers in the world, became interested in Stephanie. Hearst had known many European aristocrats before the war and believed she possessed extraordinary insight into Hitler's inner circle. With diplomatic negotiations and influential supporters quietly working behind the scenes, Stephanie was eventually allowed to leave Britain. She crossed the Atlantic. For the second time in her life, she reinvented herself. America offered distance from European battlefields, but not from controversy. The FBI soon opened its own file. Agents monitored her contacts, read reports from British intelligence, interviewed acquaintances. J. Edgar Hoover's bureau never fully trusted anyone who had once enjoyed Hitler's confidence. Again, investigators faced the same frustrating problem. She certainly knew remarkable people, but did that make her a spy? Or simply one of history's greatest opportunists? Stephanie adapted once again. She lectured, wrote, shared stories about Europe's political collapse, sometimes portraying herself as someone who had tried to warn the West, at other times emphasizing how close she had been to events few outsiders truly understood. Every interview seemed to reshape her own legend. By the end of the war, Hitler was dead. The Third Reich had collapsed. Many of the powerful figures who had once surrounded Stephanie had disappeared forever. Yet she remained, still elegant, still persuasive, still impossible to define. Historians continue debating her true role. Some believe she knowingly advanced Nazi interests among Britain's elite before the war. Others argue she was less an intelligence operative than a remarkably gifted social manipulator who exploited powerful friendships for influence, status, and survival. The truth may lie somewhere between those extremes. Unlike legendary field agents who stole secret documents or sabotaged enemy operations, Stephanie fought with conversations, charm, access, reputation. She proved that information didn't always travel inside locked briefcases. Sometimes, it moved across dinner tables, hidden inside polite conversation, wrapped in compliments, disguised as friendship. That may be why her story remains so fascinating. She left behind almost no dramatic spy gadgets, no famous escape, no coded radio transmissions, only relationships. And relationships can change the course of history just as easily as bullets. Princess Stephanie von Hohenlohe died in Geneva in 1972. She took many of her secrets with her. Whether she was Hitler's trusted unofficial agent, a misunderstood aristocrat, or simply one of the greatest political survivors of the 20th century, may never be known with complete certainty. But one fact is undeniable. Very few people ever stood so close to power, while revealing so little about themselves. If you enjoy uncovering the forgotten lives of history's most extraordinary women, the spies, survivors, queens, resistance fighters, and master manipulators whose stories changed the world, subscribe and join us for the next true story hidden beneath the pages of history.